In the election, Tony Blair said he wanted to meet real people, like this crowd at a major poster launch. Labour said that the people at these sort of events were a cross-section of the local community. It showed the Prime Minister was reconnecting with the people, as he'd promised.
And where we've lost support, we go out, we try to win it back. Where we've lost old friends, we try to persuade them to come back to the fold.
But these pictures aren't all they seem to be. We know they're not real, because the woman shaking Tony Blair's hand is Jenny Kleeman, an undercover reporter for Channel 4. She wasn't an ordinary member of the local community at all. She was working in Tony Blair's press office. Many of the other supporters were fakes as well. And as Jenny was to find out, that's not all the Labour Party faked in the election campaign. Jenny started with the Labour Party in January. She got an unpaid position as an assistant in the London Labour Regional Press Office.
Hello.
She was put to work in the office, dealing with the press.
Hello, London Labour Party. Channel 4 ITV. Hi.
And filing. This press office would help organise all of Tony Blair's major public events in London. It would also help implement his new campaign strategy. Before the election, the Prime Minister said New Labour would no longer be concerned about its media image.
No, honestly, we have got to get over worrying every night what is there in that bit on the news or that bit on the front pages of the newspapers, and actually get right down to the grassroots in the country and talk to people.
But on her very first day, Jenny found Labour was still worrying how they would look on the news.
I came back into the office to find a big commotion going on. Alan Milburn was doing a press conference, and the press office were worried that not enough journalists had turned up. So I was dispatched to sit in the audience and fill up some seats.
Jenny ended up on the 6 o'clock news that night, pretending to be an interested journalist. It seemed the press office were afraid Labour wouldn't look important enough if there weren't enough journalists there.
Are these daily put in here? Great.
One of Jenny's jobs was helping monitor the local press to see how Labour was doing.
This is how we do monitoring. Monitoring is sent in to me by organisers.
Organisers in the constituencies sent in newspaper cuttings about the three political parties.
I have to make 3 copies.
They also send in opposition leaflets and documents.
So this is a Lib Dem leaflet. And this is a Tory leaflet. A new Tory letter sent to all their households.
All the political parties monitor the media, but Labour is particularly efficient at it.
They've amassed an enormous amount of detail. They have files on every constituency in which they file cuttings relating to opposition candidates, Labour candidates.
She started organising campaigning events, such as visits by ministers to marginal constituencies. She was given more responsibility by writing Margaret Beckett's speech for her on a visit to Finchley and Golders Green.
Having been 3 weeks a volunteer in the press office, my words are in the Ham and High, the Hendon and Finchley Times, they're also in the Edgware Times and the Barnet Press, exactly what I wrote.
Labour's press office even wrote the words for its MPs and candidates. They were sent standard press releases, telling them exactly what to say to press and public.
The way these press releases work is they have blanks that are filled in by MPs to make it specific to their circumstances. What makes you proud of any town? You're supposed to substitute the name of your constituency or your area. XXXXX MP said, looking around any town makes me proud of what local people have achieved here. Insert local delivery / proud sentence here. In my work in the press office, I come across a lot of MPs who want to be spoon-fed, who want to have their press releases written by us, their newsletters written by us, their letters to their opponents written by us.
One MP was sent a template showing him how to write his newsletters. He emailed back.
What I think we need is the template filled in with the sort of stories you do in press releases. So all we have to do is drop in our photo, constituency details and any local numbers. Is this possible?
Labour also tried to get members of the public to put their name to its press releases.
Today I had to write a press release which was sent out to 32 odd organisers. It's called XXX MP urges people in XXX area to become school governors. The MP or candidate fills in the X's with their name. One of the suggestions for use, which I was told to put in, was this one. Get a local school governor to include the quotation attached below.
Jenny was told to write the quotation.
Being a school governor is about being a critical and supportive friend to the school. People imagine that governors aren't like them, but that's not true. Everyone has an experience of education, so everyone has something to offer. I get a great sense of achievement from my work as a school governor. The aim is that the MP or candidate will find a real school governor who is prepared to put their name to the quotation that I wrote.
The following week, an article appeared in the Bromley and Biggin Hill News praising local Labour candidate Rachel Reeves for encouraging people to become school governors. A school governor called Arthur Johnson said,
Being a governor is about being a critical and supportive friend of the school. I get a great sense of achievement from my work as a school governor. I wrote those words myself.
Arthur Johnson told us he was shown the statement by Rachel Reeves and agreed it represented his views. He said he did not consider it a political statement. After a few weeks in the press office, Jenny was instructed to take part in a deception.
Okay, I'm printing these out.
The regional press office sent out documents to constituency organisers. They looked like letters to newspapers written by members of the public.
It's been sent out to different constituencies all over London. This one here seems to be from the perspective of someone who has been working in the NHS. In fact, it begins, as someone who has worked for a number of years in the NHS, I feel compelled to write.
Another letter is from someone who says their experiences of the NHS are very good.
I do not feel the NHS has been accurately represented.
The letters were emailed out by the head of the regional press office. Organisers were asked to get members and supporters to send them to the local papers. For this letter, they were told to use their own language and experiences. For others, they were just told to send the attached letter in.
Good morning. How you doing? You're not well?
2 weeks after the letters were sent out, Jenny received cuttings back from the organisers.
It's never ending. A particular organiser sends me a pack like this every week.
One organiser had sent in a letter from the local newspaper.
Right, this is the Finchley and Golders Green file. This is a letter from the Barnet Press. On the 10th of March, signed Keith Martin.
It has a number of identical phrases to the standard Labour letter.
I do not feel the NHS has been accurately represented in this story. I do not feel the NHS has been accurately represented in this story. Nor has the hard work and commitment of the staff at hospitals like XXX, nor has the hard work and commitment of the staff at hospitals like Barnet Hospital. They're practically identical.
Keith Martin had all but copied the Labour letter and sent it in. The organiser had written a comment on Keith Martin.
Unobtrusive party member. So this letter writer is identified as an unobtrusive party member.
The letters had been emailed out using a careful system, so organisers in the same area wouldn't send the same letters to the same paper. But the following week, the system broke down.
We got in the local papers, like we do every week, and I started leafing through them to see what coverage we got.
Oh my God.
Another letter had appeared in the Barnet Press. It was from a Steve Tyler, and it was very familiar. The standard Labour letter had said,
I do not feel the NHS has been accurately represented in this story.
Steve Tyler said,
I do not feel the National Health Service has been accurately represented.
Nor has the hard work and commitment of the staff at hospitals like XXX.
These stories do not comment on the hard work and commitment of the staff at hospitals like Barnet.
2 of our model letters have been published week after week that are pretty much identical.
Would the paper catch them?
Yeah, they should do. That is potentially not good.
Yes.
She rang up the head of the regional press office.
I've just looked in the Barnet Press, and the same letter that was printed in the Barnet Press last week has been reprinted, but somebody else has written it, but it's pretty much exactly the same.
But he said it was good news.
It's good news. Yeah, but it's pretty much exactly the same thing. Okay, cool. Excellent. He said it was good. He said it didn't matter at all and it was a good thing and I should email the organisers. Really? Yeah.
He didn't even think it was a problem that these letters came from exactly the same template in the same paper a week apart.
Fake letters seem to be part of an organised system. To find out more about how it works in London, Jenny volunteered for Camden Labour Party, which is on her doorstep.
Hi, how are you doing? So how do you think we're doing? Do you think we're going to win?
James Powney is the paid party organiser for 2 constituencies. Jenny asked about the system.
How does it work?
Well, I mean, that covers half a dozen people who are willing to put their name to a letter, or people who can write their own letters.
I just wondered, because some of the letters we sent out were from, they're really specific. I always thought it would be a nightmare just to find the people to write them.
Well, you can always alter them.
Yeah.
It's a bit strange if they come in exactly the same letter to everyone.
But the letter always goes out from the person who signed it. They're always sending it in themselves.
Yeah, I always get someone real to sign it.
But we never get the Labour people to specifically say they're Labour, do we?
No, not usually, unless they're known. I do that occasionally, if I want a sort of official response, I get the chair of the party. But not normally, because it just discredits them, doesn't it?
Yeah.
James Powney practices what he preaches. He's well known in Camden as a paid Labour activist, but he's written dozens of letters to a local newspaper in Brent, a different constituency. He never reveals in the letters that he works for the Labour Party. Letter writing was part of a Labour strategy to bypass the national media and talk directly to the people.
There was a formal announcement as to how Labour were going to run it, and they said it was going to be different. They said the Prime Minister was not going to spend his time talking to journalists in London.
The way it was framed was as a kind of local grassroots campaign. We get to talk to the people. We're bypassing the big beasts of the media, and we're going to go straight to the electorate.
After his morning press conference, Tony Blair would fly off to marginal constituencies with just TV crews in attendance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much. The policy was simply not to tell the print journalists at all where the Prime Minister was going, so I was getting calls from newspaper colleagues saying, do you know where he's going?
It's very hard, unless you have your own helicopter, to keep up, and that was absolutely part and parcel of this. Get in there quickly, get the local media in, get the television pictures, and then get out.
Talking to regional reporters meant Labour would avoid some difficult questions.
Yeah, what Labour wanted to do, what Labour's fear was, is that the election was seen entirely through a Westminster prison, Iraq, Trust, Blair, and they needed to break out of that.
But Jenny had found Labour's interest in the local media went beyond sidelining national journalists. They were organising local people to send in Labour propaganda under their own names.
This document here is called Lib Dems Key Messages. Got this thing called Rebuttal. Lib Dems say one thing and do another. And then look at this, ways to use this story. Get residents to write to the papers. This letters thing is basically everywhere.
Staff had access to a guide on the letter writing system.
And if you look down there, you get this advice about letter. Letter writing remains one of the best ways of communicating with people through the media.
The document was called Making the Media Work for You and said,
"It's often better if the letter writer is not a well-known activist."
It explained why they do it.
More people trust the letters page than any other part of their local newspaper.
They put trust in inverted commas and put an exclamation mark at the end of that sentence. And I think that's why Labour do all this business with letter writing. They know that people trust the stories of real individuals. They think that the names of the people they're reading, those people are members of their community, their neighbours, people like them, someone who's just individually, spontaneously decided to express their views in the local newspaper. Whereas in fact the words have actually been written by someone like me in the Labour Party press office.
It wasn't just happening in London. This is a letter to the Hull Daily Mail by a David Haig. It has a familiar ring.
I do not feel the NHS has been accurately represented.
And this is by Anne Finch to the Yorkshire Post. Guess what?
I do not feel that the NHS has been accurately represented.
There's no Anne Finch on the electoral roll anywhere in Leeds. Yet we've found 3 letters to local newspapers from her, all from different addresses. She told the Yorkshire Post,
"This Prime Minister has come through the problems in Northern Ireland, Serbia, Slovakia, the former Yugoslavia..."
300 miles away in Brighton, P.R. Edwards felt the same.
This Prime Minister has come through the problems in Northern Ireland, Serbia, Slovakia, the former Yugoslavia.
They're both asking the same question.
Over the past 50 years, the Conservatives had 36 years in power. But what did they achieve?
Fortunately, they agree on the answer.
They sold council houses, which has led to the present housing shortage.
We contacted the letter writers for a comment. Steve Tyler, who wrote to the Barnet Press, denied he'd copied his letters from a standard Labour letter and said it was entirely his own work. The other letter writers did not respond. Election dirty tricks aren't new, and all political parties indulge in them. But Jenny had found the writing of fake letters was official Labour policy. She tried to find out whether tactics like this had been used elsewhere.
I've been doing some research on the internet about this kind of letter writing, and I found that while it's virtually unheard of here in the UK, it happens all the time in the US. It started off as a marketing tool for pharmaceutical companies. They used to get people to write into newspapers endorsing their product. And then the Republicans and the Democrats got hold of it as a political campaigning tool. I know the Republicans, for example, got people to write letters in during the war in Iraq saying that they thought the war was a good idea. Over there they call it AstroTurf because it's fake grassroots.
Labour didn't just import the idea of AstroTurf from America. They brought in a number of high-profile American political operatives for the campaign. One controversial employee was Zach Exley. He became known as the garbage man in America after he designed a fake George Bush website with doctored photos showing the president snorting coke. He went on to work for an internet campaigning organisation called Move On. Move On targets the grassroots for political campaigns. It openly promotes the AstroTurf technique of sending standard letters to newspapers. Labour had a problem with its grassroots. Polls were showing many voters would stay at home.
One did sense that there was a loss of grassroots support for Labour going round, that there was a sort of general air of disillusionment. I didn't hear anybody really say wholeheartedly, I'm voting for Blair and I'm delighted to be supporting this government.
Membership of the party had halved since Tony Blair came to power. Jenny had found Labour using AstroTurf techniques to give the impression of independent support for their policies.
Hi there, do I need to sign in again? Thank you.
Press office workers were encouraged to look for opportunities to attack the opposition and to use a letter-writing tactic. The head of the regional press office told Jenny how to write a letter attacking Charles Kennedy after he said criminals should get the vote.
One could be a marginal seat, you know, X seat is marginal.
As a former Lib Dem voter, I'm appalled that blah blah blah. Okay,
This letter didn't go out, but others Jenny wrote did, including one praising Gordon Brown's budget. Jenny wrote one pretending to be a member of a hard-working family.
Well done to Gordon Brown.
As a parent,
I'm not a natural Labour supporter, but I have to say I was pleasantly surprised.
And as someone a little older.
As a pensioner, I was overjoyed.
The head of the regional press office was also overjoyed.
These are great, Jenny. Very tabloid.
Next, Jenny found it wasn't just letters to the editor that Labour was faking, as she was promoted to head office to work for the party's top spin doctors and ministers. Jenny Kleeman worked undercover inside the Labour Party press machine. She'd been asked to write fake letters to local newspapers for supporters to put their names to. In March, her bosses said they were pleased with her work and she got a promotion. to work in Labour's National Press Office.
There we go. Hi.
It runs press strategy and coordinates the work of the regional press offices.
It was very, very crowded, and a lot of famous faces, Gordon Brown and Margaret Beckett, and of course John Reid, as well as Alan Milburn and Alistair Campbell.
The politicians work on the campaign alongside the senior press officers. Jenny was working at one end of the room for the media monitoring unit.
Hi, I didn't want to interrupt you.
Labour records all the channels 24 hours a day. Media monitors transcribe the words of politicians. She was shown the ropes.
An absolutely enormous stack of stuff was given to me.
Does everyone get one of these? Oh my God, it's huge.
A bound folder about this big containing Labour's stand on every single issue, every policy, how to attack the Tories, how to attack Michael Howard specifically, how to attack the Lib Dems.
I can hardly lift it up.
She was in a good position to observe the office culture.
The Labour Party at the moment are trying to say we're going for a more conciliatory campaign, a more friendly, intimate campaign, appealing to women. But that room was one of the most macho places that I have ever worked. At one point, Campbell was walking in front of me. In front of him was Alan Milburn on the phone, and he goes up and high-fives Alan Milburn whilst Alan Milburn's on the phone in the middle of the office.
Jenny was asked to type every word that opposition politicians said, including the pauses, ums and ers. Spin doctors would study the words and look for contradictions. Emails and documents were then fired off to political correspondents.
Labour, like all the political parties, know that the media love a gaffe, a U-turn, a mistake, an error, and what they want to do is be first to spot it. Instantly, the emails come in, the documents are handed round. I think people have no idea the amount of emails and paperwork we've got. Paperwork this thick, table after table, and their hope is to generate a story without Labour actually appearing to be part of the story at all.
This is Adrian McMenamin, the Chief Press and Broadcasting Officer. Jenny was told that he was the spin doctor in charge of attacking the opposition. He has a history of dirty tricks. In 2001, he was caught posting anti-Plaid Cymru messages on internet sites, without admitting he was a special advisor for the Secretary of State for Wales. He's also written pro-Labour letters to the national newspapers, without saying he's a senior Labour worker. Last year, he was the Labour press officer in the Hartlepool by-election. The Liberal Democrats accused Labour of using mock Lib Dem posters and organising fake demonstrations with homemade banners. Jenny found he was up to his old tricks. A press officer handed her something she wasn't supposed to see.
In my in tray, there was this. This is a printout of a website.
The website contains TV and radio clips damaging to opposition politicians. These clips are critical of a Liberal Democrat council leader.
I asked the press officer who'd left it in my in tray, is this meant to be there? And he took the bit of paper away from me and went, oh, no, that's not meant to be there at all. God, I don't know why that's there. And luckily, I already had the URL, so I've printed out this copy for myself.
The site's address is New Gold Dream. It stores clips of the worst gaffes of opposition politicians for distribution on the net. This is a political website attacking the Lib Dems. When you click on this entry, it takes you to New Gold Dream, where you can see Charles Kennedy promise to give criminals the vote. There's no way of telling who's behind New Gold Dream. It's been created as part of an American server, which means it can't be traced. Except for one thing. We found that last year, someone told a technical support site he was operating New Gold Dream.
The external IP address of my firewall router is New Gold Dream.
It was Adrian McMenamin, the party's chief press officer. He was putting Labour propaganda on the web, anonymously. Jenny found another way the party gets its message out, in an underhand way. In March, the Liberal Democrats held their spring conference in Harrogate. Charles Kennedy had an old-fashioned walkabout in the High Street. Almost immediately, a group of protesters ambushed him with homemade banners attacking Lib Dem policies.
Mr. Kennedy, does this protest worry you, Mr. Kennedy? What protest? There's protests behind you, the people trying to spoil your photo.
The walkabout quickly descended into chaos.
Shoot you down! It smells of crack!
One protester persistently tried to hand him an anti-Lib Dem leaflet. Charles Kennedy asked the police to intervene, and he was questioned. The protesters were accused of being from the Labour Party.
They didn't have time to write Labour on the poster, but they are Labour Party members.
But they denied it.
I don't think they're very independent.
Well, actually, I do have a mind of my own.
They refused to be interviewed on camera and destroyed their placards. Local journalists thought something was up.
Our reporter there realised pretty quickly that this wasn't just a group of anonymous, concerned members of the public who'd decided to come together. The fact that they were holding very similar-looking banners, the fact that they'd appeared spontaneously at once, the indications were that they were very organised.
When I saw that on the news, homemade placards saying Lib Dems soft on crime, it kind of rang a bell, because that is totally our slogan when attacking the Lib Dems.
So she asked the head of the London Regional Press Office.
And he told me that the regional press officer had organised a group of people to go and sabotage this walkabout.
Local reporters had spotted a familiar face.
It seemed quite clear that it was actually stage managed by the Labour Party, and there were, I'm told by my reporter who was there, figures who were Labour Party officers.
In fact, the protester who kept pushing into Charles Kennedy and was talked to by the police was Tim Barton, press and research officer for the Labour Party in Leeds. Fake demos were arranged nationwide. An organiser from Labour HQ told Jenny there'd be another one at the Conservative Spring Conference.
It's Wednesday today, and he was saying, yes, Saturday morning we're going to have a spontaneous demonstration. You have to turn up 10 a.m. on the Brighton seafront.
Sure enough, at exactly 10 a.m, the protesters spontaneously turned up. And right on cue started protesting.
Hands off the NHS! Hands off the NHS! Hands off the NHS!
Head office had even organised exactly what the placards would look like.
He was saying, yes, the spontaneous banners, they're going to be no to Tory cuts and proud of the NHS. They've got to be amateur and not directly, overtly traceable back to the Labour Party. And he referred to them as the spontaneous banners without a hint of irony at all.
The protest was organised so it would look spontaneous on TV, but there were a few giveaways if you were paying attention. All the banners were written in the same handwriting with the same pen. And in the middle of them all was Celia Barlow, who was then the Labour candidate for Hove and Port Slade, and is now its MP. Next, Jenny became a fake New Labour supporter herself. Jenny Kleeman was working undercover for New Labour. She'd been party to a widespread campaign of manipulation and deception. Now she saw how the party sold Tony Blair to the nation. In February, he launched his election pledges and started at Battersea, South London. As an assistant to the press office, Jenny was helping deal with the journalists. Like everything else in the Labour Party, it was minutely controlled.
The whole point was that Tony Blair was meant to arrive as the sun was coming up over the Thames. And the photo call, there was a mark taped on the floor where Tony Blair and Gordon Brown were meant to walk to.
Inside, a group of people had been brought in to meet him.
Kids were organised strategically on this rug, doing colouring in. As happens every Friday morning in property developments before school, that's where kids go to do their colouring in. There were parents too there, including the parents of an extremely small baby. Gordon Brown and Tony Blair came and spoke to them.
Using supposedly ordinary people like this was crucial to the Labour campaign.
I'm sorry for everyone who's behind. You've got the back, they've got the forward. But I think we're both headed in the same direction anyway.
Labour even had a word for them. They called them endorsers.
Well, this is a very American technique. I mean, it seems to me, and then all the parties do this, that whenever the leader is being filmed, you have to have a group of happy, smiling people behind him. Old, young, tall, short, every conceivable hue and race and colour. So I think they probably just tick them off on a quota system.
Journalists were told endorsers were ordinary voters and a cross-section of the local community. Tony Blair's public appearances were carefully stage-managed to look spontaneous.
Quite often, it would be in a secure zone with no possible access for members of the public, so that there was no question of heckling. You couldn't really get a more clinically sterile environment of supposed electioneering than that.
Endorsers were even arranged outside events, so they'd clap when the Prime Minister was leaving. These people were filmed being lined up outside the Mermaid Theatre in London, where Tony Blair launched his manifesto in April. Genuine passers-by were corralled on the other side of the road.
What are they going to do? I can't believe they've hired people to stand around him and cheer. Oh, he's coming over and saying hello. How exciting.
Journalists tried to talk to the endorsers.
How is it that you got to be down there?
I'm a student, and we're all sort of young members in London, so we're just sort of here to show.
Where are you from?
From Channel 4.
Can I have a quick conversation with you?
Sure.
Sorry. I'm Dot, I'm one of the press officers. If you want to interview anyone, you need to kind of ask me first.
Are they endorsers or
I don't
members
know.
or supporters?
I have no idea. I don't know. I
Right.
don't know. Sorry, I'm not very helpful.
They were led away. Dispatch's reporter Peter Oborne tried to meet the Prime Minister for a Channel 4 film.
I'm in Rushden. Where is the Prime Minister meeting?
He managed to track him down to an event in Northamptonshire.
Oh, here we are. We weren't allowed in. There was a bit of a melee, and we sort of looked important and walked in behind the Prime Minister, and he pulled it off. We got inside the building.
But they were soon stopped.
This is definitely pulled. I'm taking cameras off.
Yeah?
Which organisation?
Channel 4 dispatches.
I don't think you're actually meant to be here. This is an event for regional media and the leaders' team.
Excuse me, why aren't we allowed to be here?
Because I think this is a closed event. It's for...
Although they had managed to get our cameras to some extent away from the action, nevertheless I went in and sort of mingled with the pseudo-voters.
When he tried to ask a question, he was blocked.
A fellow came and tried to stop me, talking across me, so I couldn't actually talk to the Prime Minister.
When he saw the ruckus, the Prime Minister did take questions. Everyone at the event had been specially invited. The appearance hadn't been publicised locally.
There was no way that an ordinary voter was ever going to hear about this event. It was a pseudo-event for television, basically.
While Jenny was working in the National Press Office, a major poster launch was arranged down by the Thames. It was designed to be a photo op for the Prime Minister.
Now, they didn't want any journalists to attend. They wanted pictures. The newspapers were simply not invited. Television had to be told because we're the only way they can get those pictures out. And that's how I knew about that event. When I arrived at the event, there were a group of people being rehearsed.
He speculated who they were.
Did they hire these people? I don't know. Who are they? Why are there no pensioners there?
Jenny knew who they were because she was one of them. She'd been emailed by Labour head office asking her to attend. As Nick Robinson had spotted, they were carefully organised.
A senior organiser came over to the side where I was standing and said we needed more women in the front. He wanted big happy smiles from all of us. We had to look really, really happy to be there and proud of the poster.
Jenny knew a lot of the people there. They were also Labour Party workers who'd been asked to turn up. This man was a senior Labour organiser. This woman was the head of a department called Field Ops. This woman worked at head office too. This woman worked for Field Ops. A group of people stood directly behind Tony Blair during the event. This person worked as a volunteer at the London Regional Labour Party. Jenny had seen this woman working at head office. This woman is a coordinator for Field Ops. Behind her was an American who worked at head office. Jenny had seen her with Gordon Brown. This was an American intern. And this was another American intern. They both worked with Jenny at the regional press office. The crowd could hardly be said to be a cross-section of the local community, but Labour was giving the impression they were ordinary local supporters.
The poster was then unveiled, and everyone on my side were clapping enthusiastically. Most people couldn't see it, so people behind me going, "What does it say? What does it say?"
Labour was getting the pictures it wanted.
And we were shoved behind some barricades, and it was made pretty clear that this was a picture opportunity. We were told there would be no questions, and I just decided I was going to ask them anyway.
Prime Minister, can you only win by distorting your opponent's policies?
No, I'm actually very pleased that you've raised this.
We were all kind of smiling and happy about the poster, and then all of a sudden this quite messy shouting match was going on.
Less is not a cut, Prime Minister, is it?
Everybody felt very awkward, and I think certainly the people behind Tony Blair, who knew that they were in shock, didn't know what to do. Tony Blair decided he'd had enough, and he turned to go and was shaking hands with people on the other side of the poster, and I thought, oh, well, there's my chance. But slowly he turned and started walking towards us.
The Prime Minister was mostly shaking hands with his own backroom staff, but it was how it looked on TV that counted. Adam Bolton went to a few poster launches.
This was not Meet the People. You're being asked to be a co-conspirator in creating a false reality, and we always try and point out that this is an entirely synthetic event.
Afterwards, the press office was furious that Nick Robinson had hijacked their photo op. For the next poster launch, they made certain that no reporter could get close to the Prime Minister.
When another poster unveiling was done down at Billingsgate Fish Market, we saw how they reacted to the idea of unprompted questions.
Endorsers were out in force.
Today's poster launch, accompanied by a cast of what Labour calls endorsers, was meant to concentrate...
After Tony Blair made his speech, the press office took control.
Because at the moment that the poster unveiling was over, at the moment the scripted words had been delivered, we actually saw Labour Party spin doctors ushering to get the real people who'd been invited to form, in effect, a human shield between the questioners, the journalists, and the politicians.
Why are you standing in the way? Excuse me, why are you standing in the way?
Ben McIntyre was there.
Many of us were actually amazed to see that this literally a wall of people was suddenly being put between us in order to prevent us from asking questions.
That's extraordinary.
I know, but we can't see Gordon and Tony.
It's so crowded.
The BBC's Andrew Marr complained to David Hill, Labour's Director of Communications.
The minute it's over, all the cameras are deliberately blocked. People come and stand right in front of the cameras, are moved in front of the cameras to block the shots so that no questions can be taken, nothing can be done. Absolutely absurd, David. Really, really absurd.
Yes, they completely blocked a shot and it was ridiculous.
A shot of what?
For a Director of Communications, he's being strangely uncommunicative.
It looks like they've walked off and not spoken to the people, so they just suddenly...
I mean, it would have been a good shot for him.
Stood in the front of the shot.
Well, I was behind there, unfortunately.
It's really weird. I mean, did you see it?
Their job done, the human shields disappeared.
We never did find out who they were, though we did ask. They were spirited away very swiftly to some other corner of Billingsgate Fish Market, and we never saw them again.
In fact, Jenny knew one of them. She was a very junior intern in the regional press office. Jenny went to talk to her.
How are you? You've been having a good time? I swear I saw you on TV. Were you at the poster launch?
Oh, yeah, I was. This is the one where we were questioning Canada.
What happened?
They told us just to stand around and make sure that the reporters get the out of him, that they don't ask any questions. And suddenly, as they finished,
Please, why are you all standing in the way?
What happened?
The BBC and Sky.
But that must have been because of what happened.
Jenny asked about the endorsers.
Who are the families, though?
It's like every group you could see. The Jewish family, obviously Jewish family. There was a Muslim family. So it was just like rainbow coalition.
But the Labour Party had been caught out recycling them. One woman, Rachel Virgo, a teacher from East London, wore the same headscarf twice.
The woman with the headscarf, yeah, I saw her.
The outfits, and it's like, I was like, are they actors? Because they look the same outfit and look exactly the same. And I was like, aren't people going to play that out? And then the next day there was an article about the family. Did you see that?
The Virgo family told journalists they'd been invited along after they wrote a supportive letter to Labour MP Ona King. But there were other familiar faces there that day. This man had also been at Battersea with his baby. This man was behind Tony Blair at the previous poster launch. Labour had used the intern on other occasions. She felt uncomfortable with it.
I think I've been in quite a few, not just the poster things, but in the background. You know, where you're like, oh, that one, we're not just
Have you had, I mean, it's been easy to recruit real people to go out and, on like crowds and stuff because they're using the same people over again.
Well, usually it's late, you know how it's Labour people who are like
Nothing is left to chance in the Labour Party. Jenny found they even keep lists of supporters called real people. The lists include the endorsers who appeared at Battersea with the Prime Minister. They'd been carefully selected. The endorsers were recruited by party workers and vetted to check they agreed with Labour policies. Other names on the lists are senior public servants, like policemen, including a chief superintendent and 2 borough commanders. One list has 16 doctors, 6 head teachers and 14 teachers. One head teacher has the comment,
leaflet, video endorser.
The parties also tried to use soldiers. A standard letter on Tory defence policies asked organisers to get a serving member of the armed forces to put their name to it. A comment for one real person says,
too well known in borough.
Now, one doctor is called Dr. Tom Coffey. And in the comments section on this list, it says next to his name that he will allow use of surgery / endorse the NHS. And it also says that he is chair of the Tooting Labour Party.
Dr. Coffey has appeared on The World at 1 as an independent GP.
Tom Coffey is a GP who chairs the New Health Network, an independent think tank of health professionals.
I think most people would agree there's now some slow but steady progress in the health service.
Spent an hour on Radio 5 Live.
And things are improving in the health service.
And written letters to national newspapers.
I take issue with the spurious charges made against Foundation hospitals.
Without mentioning his connection to the Labour Party. Dr. Coffey told us,
I routinely inform TV and radio producers that I am a member of the Labour Party when asked to comment on any issues which are political. I have never been unwilling to admit to being chair of Tooting Labour Party.
The New Health Network says it's independent and offered doctors for media interview throughout the campaign. But others in the organisation have Labour links. Dr. Sue Page and Professor Ray Powles took part in Labour press conferences in the 2001 election. The New Health Network told us it is not affiliated to any one political party. It said,
the New Health Network regards the political affiliations of its members to be a personal matter with no relevance to its work. Dr. Tom Coffey has been a spokesman for the New Health Network in his professional capacity as a senior and experienced general practitioner.
Labour kept up its campaign of deception until the end. Late in the campaign, a new group of protesters hounded Michael Howard.
Suddenly, as if from nowhere, a group of 6 Grim Reapers turned up, including one very tiny Grim Reaper, sort of intoning boom or bust, boom or bust.
I came across them in Tadcaster in North Yorkshire. Plain placards, again, with slogans written in marker pen. They were very organised, if not more organised than the Harrogate mob.
We never actually found out who these people were, but they followed Michael Howard for most of the latter part of the campaign.
But at Tadcaster, one Grim Reaper gave the game away.
This girl walked up to me, a student walked up to me and said, and asked me if I worked for the Labour Party, and I said no, and I identified myself as a journalist. And she said, oh, I must have recognised you from Labour Party events. And so I asked who she was, and she said she'd been one of the Grim Reapers, and then joined her mates who were sitting in a car, jumped in, and I saw that they were all holding big Vote Labour placards, probably off to another event where they were being a bit more honest about who they were representing.
The head of the London Regional Press Office had known who'd organised the Harrogate demonstration. Jenny asked him about the Grim Reapers.
Did you see Howard yesterday? There was lots of protesters around the Howard thing yesterday. Yeah.
They're just showing pictures on Sky.
Was that, I mean, is that something that you know...
We may have had something.
Jenny Kleeman had worked on the Labour Party campaign for 3 months. On April the 11th, Parliament was dissolved and she turned up for work. But someone was sitting at her desk. The head of the media monitoring unit led her outside.
Good news and bad news.
Good news and bad news.
Depending on your point of view. Unfortunately, we no longer have a desk, and we have no room.
OK. What does that mean, though?
Well, it means at the moment there's nothing for us to do.
She was sent home. She'd been cut loose because new people had been brought in. She was told the same thing had happened to 10 other volunteers who'd been hoping to fight the campaign.
I came into the Labour Party press office expecting to see a degree of cynicism. But what I actually found was a level of organised deception that I wasn't expecting at all. The people involved didn't think there was anything wrong about what they were doing at all. They didn't think there was anything disingenuous about these deceptions, because their job was to follow a campaign strategy and get the government re-elected. That's all that really mattered.
We put our findings to the Labour Party. They told us
it would be inappropriate for the Labour Party to comment on the programme until we have had the opportunity to see it. We will not therefore be commenting until the programme has been broadcast.
Tony Blair had promised he'd stop worrying about headlines and reach out to the people. But Labour hadn't given up manipulating the media.
Tony Blair is all kind of smiley and, you know, what's going on, hey guys, above it. But behind it, they do want to exert control and pressure to the maximum degree that they can.
Tony Blair said he had reconnected with the British people.
And I've listened and I've learned. And I think I have a very clear idea of what the British people now expect.
I doubt that Tony Blair met a single unvetted voter.
Could I put a question to him? No. Did he take any questions from real people? No. Did he actually meet any real people? No.
The Prime Minister was placed in a bubble and hidden from the electorate.